Here we go. Hey guys, Jacalyn here with Zenith Home Loans. Thank you so much for joining us for another one of our Q&A sessions. Today, I am very excited to introduce you to Joey Hoisescu, right? No, I still said it wrong.
Close enough.
Hoisescu,
That's okay. That's
dang
okay.
it. So close, of the Denver Barbell Club. Thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you.
Hi, Jacalyn. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
I'm excited to be here.
Good. I'm glad. So why don't we just kind of start with maybe a little bit of background on who you are and around the Denver Barbell Club, and then we'll hop into some questions.
Yeah. So I'm Joey Hoisescu. I'm one of the co-founders, now the owner of Denver Barbell Club exclusively, or pretty soon, just got to sign some paperwork. But yeah, I'm a national coach with USA Weightlifting. I'm the only active one in town, one of the few in the state actually who's still active in that. So there's 5 levels. I'm a level 3, and you have to earn the national coach designation. So you can't just like take a test and do it. You actually have to be successful training weightlifters on competitive platforms at different like levels above the local. I've owned the gym for 6.5 years. Started from scratch with $500, no people. And yeah, man, it's my passion project. I hate those 2 words put together, but it's kind of true. So it's my baby. It's what I love the most. So that's Denver Barbell Club, and that's my relationship to it.
Awesome. And so why did you decide to start it?
Yeah. I had a pretty badass team in San Diego, where I had a coach. I was just an athlete, lifted every day, stuff like that. And when I moved here, I ended up lifting by myself in the back of CrossFit Omnia. I got a coach out here because I didn't really believe in remote coaching, only like in-person coaching. So I got a coach out here. We got along okay. I thought he was kind of just not really into coaching as much as much as my coach Dave was in San Diego. So anyway, I ended up lifting by myself in the back of CrossFit Omnia, which was an awesome place with great owner back then, Mr. RJ. But I was bored, man. And I was like, you know what? There's got to be 10 people who want to lift weights and drink beer with me. So at the time, I was coaching weightlifting in a CrossFit gym that my previous business partner owned. She decided to shut her CrossFit gym down and was going to sell everything. And, weightlifting equipment, I mean, gym equipment, everyone thinks we're sitting on like millions of dollars worth of stuff. But the reality is like, down the road, people are, at least then, this is like obviously pre-pandemic, people aren't really down to pay top dollar for used equipment back then, or weren't, I guess. And I was like, hey, like, what are you going to do with this equipment? You're going to kind of lose your ass on it. And she was like, yeah, that's how it goes. So I called Ryan Anderson from CrossFit Lodo, who your brother actually worked with back then. I called him up and I was like, hey, dude, you have an empty space at your Rhino location. You got a bunch of kilo plates. What are you going to do with that? We talked it up, and then there it was. I figured there were 10, he gave us a space per hour so I could just coach people 3 days a week. And I figured, like I said, there's got to be 10 people who want to lift weights and drink beer with me. And I was right about the 10 people and wrong about the limit on how many there actually are. So yeah, I thought we could get 10 to 20 people, and now it's a lot bigger than that. So
yeah, that's awesome. What kind of, so you're essentially, I mean, this is a small business. And so what kind of surprises did you encounter when trying to get this off the ground?
All of them. There's so many. I actually did fill out the questions. Thankfully you gave me some of them in advance, and this happened to be one of them. But I don't want anybody to think this is like arrogance or cockiness. I'm just being like observant, I guess, and just telling you guys like the honest truth. But how fast a good idea can expand and what problems come with that. Like, not having a successful business is obviously a huge problem. But when you have one that continuously brings people in like seemingly exponentially, that's also a problem, because people are pissed at you and think, it just presents a whole nother group of issues. So I would say how fast a good idea can expand is probably the number one thing that surprised the hell out of me. More members equal more money, but also equals more equipment. And there's a lot of equations in gyms that are pretty complex, where you need to figure stuff out. So it's like, yeah, cool, I got 5 members in, that's $1,000 more in revenue per month, but how many barbells, how many plates do I need? And then, come in then comes the idea of, well, how long do these members need to stick around in order to pay off that equipment that I just bought for them?
Right.
And, all along the way, it's just like this constant balancing act. So I would, that's probably the biggest surprise is like, just, also not the idea part, but like probably the logistics part. It's really easy to start a business.
Yeah.
like the idea is hard, no doubt, and the work is hard, but I mean, it's like $25 or $50 or something like that for an LLC or like to register yourself with the state. You get a registered agent, an EIN, that's all free. I mean, it's like shockingly easy to start a business. Like the actual logistics of it. So
yeah, that's a good point. What do you think were some of your greatest successes in the early days?
Expanding coaching hours. I mean, we started with 3 days, an hour and a half a piece. And like I said, I paid Ryan hourly for stuff, which was a huge help from him. But being able to expand to like a real schedule, like four days a week and then 5 days a week. And then eventually we hired our very first coach, Coach Dave, who helped me. He was one of our athletes and he was super instrumental. But being able to hire that first coach was huge. And then like taking our lifters after 6 months to a year of working with them to like local meets and stuff like that. And just kind of honestly seeing how much better they were technically than a lot of the people who came from other gyms in Colorado. That was a huge success. I took a lot of pride in that. Some people are gonna be mad at me for saying that, but I mean, here we are 6.5 years later,
right?
150 people. So it's like, yeah, I mean, obviously we've done something right, but that was a huge success. And obviously becoming like like a USA weightlifting national coach, that was kind of my goal. If I had any goals with this, I was like, hey, it'd be kind of cool to be a national coach. And that was obviously a huge accomplishment because it shows that you can not only, run a good business and a successful business and attract people to that, but you can also motivate people to continuously training in this godforsaken sport.
Right.
That's just super difficult and just keep them going to the point where like they really crush it on big platforms. So
how many of the original weightlifters that you started with when you first started Barbell Club do you have any of those guys still with you or girls?
I think 5.
Okay.
I would say 4 to 5 people. Yeah. Weightlifting is it's not CrossFit. I mean, we don't promise aesthetics. You can be aesthetically pleasing. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you just got to get a nutrition coach, which we have relationships with one who's actually one of our best weightlifters. So she's cool. But anyway, like you can be aesthetically, it's just, I mean, it's a sport, and
right.
We train like 90% of our membership are just regular folks like me who I don't compete anymore. Like regular folks like us who have jobs and just want to come in and crush weights 3, 4, 5 days a week. But the other 10%, I mean, I guess for everybody, they got to treat it like a sport. Like if you want to get better at Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting, it just takes time and a lot of focus. And I think that's hard. So the fact that we have 4 or 5 people from the original gym still around, it's pretty crazy because we also moved we've moved 3 times and moving sucks. Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, it's a lot. Do all of the athletes that lift with you, what percentage would you say compete?
10-15%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like if I'm going to come to a barbell club or if I was going to come and lift, if that was something I wanted to get into, there's not like this pre-notion, because I feel like to an extent with CrossFit, there's a lot of, because I used to do CrossFit and I used to compete a lot. And that was kind of like the thing. It's like, oh, you're going to compete. And it's like, I don't want to compete. Like, I kind of suck at this. I'm just trying to be in good shape. So it sounds like with weightlifting, like, I was like, I have all kinds of injuries and stuff. Like I'm old now, guys. So there's not like if I'm going to weightlift, I have to compete. It's just, if you like throwing around weights, if you want to be strong or whatever the case is, whatever your motivation is, you don't have to compete, but it's cool to know that you could.
No. Yes. Yeah. So our, I don't know. So it's funny because you kind of touched on a hot topic for us. When we started the gym, nobody knew who I was. They still know who I am. I mean, I don't need to be known. This gym is about the people, not about me. So, but they didn't know who we were, I guess. And so nobody, a couple of people competed here. It's probably always been 10%, to be honest.
Yeah.
But, as the numbers grew, that percentage just represented more people. But now we have this, it's so funny. We have this idea or this reputation that we're like this fiercely competitive gym where like you come in and you have to be a killer and you have to be nationally ranked. And it's like, that's all BS. And like, you can come in. I mean, we have Coors Banquet beer, obviously representing Colorado. Like we have Coors Banquet beer in the refrigerator. We have the people that eat super strict and they're super jacked. And we have the people that finish a workout and go chug a beer in the back. I mean, when I lifted weights, I was shotgunning beers and hitting PRs. So that was kind of my thing.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how everybody was. And that's how we attracted this like group of, degenerates is what I call them.
Right.
But they're some of my best friends now, but yeah, it's, you don't have to compete if you come with us. Like we train everybody so that as if they were going, like, we want everybody to be as good as they possibly can be, and competition brings out the best in people, but you don't have to compete to get the best from us. So, if people at our gym want to, then we're there for it. We coach them, we provide programming if they're high level lifters and they require something a little bit more, kind of a little bit more difficult and stuff like that. But we, by no means do most people compete. Like I said, 10 to 15% compete, and the rest, we're just chilling out, drinking protein shakes and kind of talking trash,
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I've lifted at the Barbell Club before. And like, as I'm there, I'm like, man, I want to compete. And then I go home and I'm like, I'm too old to compete. Like, what am I doing? I got a kid.
I say the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say the same thing.
What about setbacks that you experienced in those early days? Did anything come to mind?
Yeah. There were, like I said, nobody knew who we were. We didn't have a reputation. We started from scratch. I mean, it's like a very grassroots, like, movement, so to speak, like bootstrap sort of thing. We just kind of kept building slowly but surely. And I remember in the early days, some people, Denver's always been a hot place, so people have moved from other places. Right. And I think they're also shocked when, now there's one barbell club in town. I mean, there's another one, but their owner is kind of, he's sort of not in, he's not really, I think he's moving is the thing. But anyway, there's one barbell club in town that trains Olympic weightlifters. It's us. And so early on, there was always like one or two, but they were kind of like, the other ones were outside the city, whereas we were in Rhino and then initially downtown and now back in our original home of Rhino. But, people came in, like a couple of people came in and tried to start their own programs here and create their own systems, a couple of which even created their own system within our walls. And, then like the trash talking petty BS starts, where it's like, oh, they don't know what they're doing, blah, 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 blah. We're better, this and that. And it's like, that was kind of a setback for me, because it was the first time somebody kind of tried to come in and like step on my territory. I mean, they were inside our building and they're like trying to start a program inside of our building and then like looking at me every day as if I didn't know.
Right.
So that was like, it didn't really hurt us at all. I mean, they're gone, we're still here. But there were definitely some, setbacks where it's like, oh man, like this other CrossFit gym, now that they see our success, they're trying to start a barbell club. Well, that gets 3 or 4 people, and that 3 or 4 people means something to us. And so I would call those kind of mini setbacks. And then honestly, running out of space, like we went from 500 square feet initially to like 1,050 square feet to 2,100 square feet to now 2,500 square feet. And, every time we run out of space, it's just like a shot to the private, to be honest with you. Like, it just sucks. It's a huge setback, because then you have to start planning this entire move. Commercial leases are not like, regular leases where they're up every year. So, you're kind of just like, you sign this lease for 5 years and you just got to get creative on how to make that space work. So those are definitely setbacks. And then this year I'm kind of negotiating a buyout with my previous business partner, and that's gotten a little ugly. Now I think we're past it, but that's been kind of a setback. And, it's the kids that pay. I mean, my energy is, has been used somewhere else, because this is something that only the owner can handle.
Right.
So I can't delegate this to anybody else. So, the kids have paid for it the last 9 months. And so this has probably been the biggest setback, because we moved the gym to a development that honestly, doesn't really have it together as much as I thought they did, as much as they made it look like they do. If they're listening to this, I honestly don't care. I've told them this like in emails and stuff, so we're good. But, it's like the bathrooms weren't ready. The space wasn't ready. We were delayed 8 months. I'm buying out my business partner. It's just like, those are probably some of the biggest setbacks that have happened.
Yeah. And I'd say, I mean, from the business partner perspective, like that's hard, because obviously you went into it thinking, okay, we're going to have this partnership, it's going to keep growing. And then one person has different set of goals, or it's like, hey, this just no longer fits with where my goals are. And so one person has to decide. I think that's a good analogy. It's like, hey, that's the kids that pay. It's like, this is a divorce. And like, I still want the business to run, because it's still a passion project for me. It's okay that it's not for you, but then you've got to figure out, okay, all of those responsibilities that fell on the other partner, it's like, okay, now those come on to me, and what can I afford, and what do I physically have the capacity to handle? And then
emotionally.
Absolutely. Emotionally, mentally. And then all at the same time, it's like, but at the same time, it's like, we've got to make sure the business doesn't suffer, because while we haven't had that experience from a partnership perspective here at Zenith, it's like, when you've got people who are in upper management, they're like, hey, this doesn't work for me anymore. It's like, okay, what were they responsible for? How do I make sure the customer doesn't suffer while we figure out how to fix this piece in here, or take on that role? Or like, I've had assistants leave or let go. And it's like, okay, how do I make sure that I'm not dropping the ball somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, what email did you miss? Like what,
Yeah.
like, I mean, we switched credit cards from a credit card that was backed, it was, I guess, like personally guaranteed, like a small business credit card always is by my, previous partner. And we paid that one off and then had to switch it over. So then it's like every like other day, it seemed like I'm getting like another payment didn't go through because we canceled that card. And it's like, well,
yeah.
now
I don't know what's
like,
attached to the card anymore. Yeah.
Exactly.
Got it. That totally makes sense. Why weightlifting? Why is this your passion project? What do you love so much about it?
I don't know if there's a greater physical or mental test of a person in this sport, to be completely honest with you. And I've played soccer. I played soccer for almost 20 years. I played football through high school. I played basketball as a kid. Let's see, I rowed in college when I had to stop playing soccer because of my knee. So I was a rower for a year. I did the CrossFit thing for a year and then on and off again for like another 5 or 6, mostly off. And mostly off, but like, man, so I was in a pretty dark place so I lost my dad when I was 22, and that kind of changed my whole world. Not to get too personal, but you said you wanted to be conversational, and you know how I talk.
Nope,
it's like you go out for a beer with me, it's probably going to be like a 6-pack. It's going to be a while, but yeah, like, I lost my dad and that was really hard for me, and I had to take care of my mom and stuff like that, like mostly financially, which was hard for a 22-year-old, kid, so to speak. And I was just in like a really dark hole for a long time. And then when I started doing CrossFit, I didn't really drink the CrossFit Kool-Aid. I got jacked, don't get me wrong, and it was really hard. But then I found like, we were doing Olympic weightlifting and had a couple coaches that just made it fun. I mean, one of them, Edgar, he just nonstop talk shit to us, And now it's like, man, if I ever coach this, it's going to be 90% shit talking, 10% technical. Cause he was like 99 talking trash and then 1% technical, but he kept me in it and I just fell in love with it. And I just remember it required such a high level of emotional, intellectual, energy, physical energy and preparation. And it's like, I mean, it got me to stop drinking for 2 years, which I'm not like, I like my cocktails, but it's not like I'm getting trashed every morning at 8 a.m.
Right.
But, it stopped me from drinking for 2 years because I just remember the hangovers and like the barbell hitting the ground. I'm like, dude, I just can't handle this anymore. So I was so focused on it that it just stopped me from drinking. And like, it just got me in a place where I was like, whoa, man, like this sport is literally the sport of the impossible. Like that's what you're doing constantly, is chasing this impossible thing. And it's a super, super good allegory for life. And, I surfed also for like 12 years every morning when I was in San Diego. And there's probably, like I said, there's just, I just fell in love with it. Like there's nothing harder than this sport, period. End of story. Because not just strength, like we train powerlifters too. And powerlifting is, it's hard. Don't get me wrong, but it's a pure strength sport. And this is like, they call it the speed strength sport. So you're talking about, and then putting the bar where it needs to go is like, it's, it's all about mobility. So you have to work on that. And then it's an intellectual pursuit because it's like this poetic motion, it's like poetry in motion. So you're trying to move your body around this inanimate object that's really good at doing what it's supposed to do, which is sit there and do nothing. And you have to like aggressively, violently, but also like seamlessly put this thing in the positions that it needs to go, which is just, honestly, it's mind boggling. So I think the challenge of it just got me hooked. I was like, man, this is like the most ridiculous thing I've ever had to do. And I love it.
And it's very mentally challenging.
It's like, man, there's like, I deal like the better the weight, not better, but the more advanced or technically proficient, I should say, the weightlifter, the harder, like the less good days they have a week. And you're just kind of like, man, you're talking them off you're seemingly talking them off the cliff half the time, more than half the time.
I know. I'm a weightlifter. I know.
Yeah. I mean, Marcio, he's a killer weight. Am I allowed to say his name on TV?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're good.
Yeah. I mean, Marcio's an insane weightlifter and got to a pretty insane level. And it's like, the guy's, he's a mechanical engineer with like 6 degrees and builds cars for fun. So like, that's the kind of guy he is, and it's, you know what it comes with. And it's like, he has a bad day and comes home and he's like, I hate myself. I hate you. I hate the dog. I hate everything. And like, dude,
and then at the same time, it's like,
lifting session.
You threw up 300 pounds. I feel like it's okay. It's like, and that's like some people's dream. So it's definitely because what, I think you get to a point where you know what you're capable of.
That's exactly what
you've done it. And you're like, why won't my body do this again?
That's
and
exactly
why
right.
can't I get there again? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. So you mentioned all of the growth that Barbell Club has experienced over the years. How do you manage that kind of growth and not stretch the business too far or too thin?
Yeah. You know, I kind of, yeah, that's a tough one. I think, so we call it DBC, Denver Barbell Club, obviously. And, DBC has always been for the lifters, by lifters. I mean, when we started it, me and the business partner were both weightlifters. I'm still a weightlifter. I mean, I kind of dabble. I don't really have time to do it as much as I used to, but now I'm a weightlifting coach with a pretty good pedigree. So, it's always been for lifters, by lifters, and every decision that we make. Now we have a GM, Lindsay, who you know very well. She kills it. And, we just always keep in mind, like, whatever decision we're making, there's really no decision is made without first connecting to like that goal of making it for lifters and by lifters. So it's like, well, what's better for them? What's gonna long-term, short-term, what's the best for them? That's really all it's about. And I mean, there's things I want to do. Like there's other things I want to do with the gym. There's directions I want to take it. But we always come back to this central idea of like, okay, how is this going to help these people? Right. And anybody else who comes in and wants to be a weightlifter or a powerlifter. So powerlifting is a great example. We expanded into powerlifting. There's been some drama in the powerlifting world within Denver. And we're like, hey, it wasn't so much that it was an opportunity, but it's more like, wait a second, what if people get sick? Like, what if our members get sick of of weightlifting for a minute? It happens, and they want to do something else strength related. Well, let's make the investment in powerlifting equipment and powerlifting coaching and powerlifting programming, and let's see what we can do with that. So it's ultimately always about just making this place better for lifters. And you haven't been there in a while, but the community that this place has become is like, there's another gym it's in California, it's in the Bay Area. It's kind of like, it's always been like to me, it's a gold standard of community and like, environment and vibe and stuff like that. And I don't know if anybody from there is ever going to hear this, but if they do, we might have what you had, to be honest with you. Like, it might be the best environment in the country. And we're not the most successful team in the country yet, but there's a pretty good chance it's the best environment for everybody to lift in the country. And I think this is why we don't stretch it thin. We keep in mind that the lifters are number one and everything we do is for them. Yeah.
So very, very client focused.
Yeah, it's hard, man, because you want to do all this cool shit, like do this and do that and do that. And me, I'm like squirrel, whatever. And but you can't. You got to do what's good for them. This isn't about me or about Lindsay or about the coaches. It's about them.
Right. Yeah. So what kind of goals do you have for DBC into the future? I know you've just moved into a new space, so obviously getting that exactly where you want it to be. But like beyond that, is there like any goals around like national championships, other coaching opportunities? I know you're very heavily focused on doing competitions that are supporting mental health and things like that. Like what other kind of goals do you have there?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So, I want the gym to have an international presence. And I think the most important thing we do there is show people that, like all of our people have jobs. We have, we have lifters, we have several lifters that are ranked in the top 10 in the country, Olympic weightlifters, and soon to be probably some power lifters as well. They all have jobs.
Yeah.
They all have real jobs. They're not Insta famous. They're not influencers with no influence. I mean, they're like real people like me and you, and they go out, they do their job, they come in, they crush weights, and they become these incredible athletes. And I think if we can get the gym to an international presence and I can get that message out, that would be my personal and sort of professional goal to like leave the world a little bit better than I found it someday, where it's like, hey, like we have a huge women's program. I mean, they are the dominant gender in our gym right now. They have been, honestly, since we became competitive, and it's upon their backs that our gym rose. And I think it's so incredible that women can come in there. They don't get harassed by men at the gym. Like we don't mess with that. I don't allow it, period. And it's like, they're like, they have positive body image. They're not too, they're not like buying into that BS where dudes think they're too bulky. Like they're jacked, they're strong. It's like they move well, they're athletic. Like that's what's important to all of them. And I think getting that, getting the gym to like an international level would be like, meaning international competition and stuff like that, which we're pretty close, which I think we're stepping into it. You could argue we're stepping into that realm this year. We already have, but pushing that into the future would be cool. And then, to the goal, like to kind of support the goal of expanding weightlifting and powerlifting and strength programs for normal people, which is my goal. Opening up more locations would be really cool. And then finally, that's kind of like a goal of mine that I'm heavily considering it, like within Denver. And then thinking about, starting a nonprofit division of the gym to really support mental health, where it's like, hey, every dollar that you donate gets used for our travel program, for our youth program, for people that disadvantaged youth. I mean, my mom had to beg, borrow, and steal to get me into soccer programs, school, all that stuff. She was crying, telling everybody how poor we were because we didn't have any money and stuff like that. So supporting kids that need stuff like that would be really cool. And then, obviously using the money to support mental health for especially for young people. Cause I feel like all of us that struggle with that, it started it starts when you're a kid, but I feel like it really, really kind of blossoms, in a bad way, blossoms in high school. Yeah. And I think hitting those kids and telling them, hey dude, you're strong, you're fierce, you're capable, stuff like that is definitely something we want to support in the future. Because we end up teaching 35-year-olds that now. And it's hard. If we could have gotten them when they were 15, it'd be a totally different story. Because then they'd come up and they're going to college with their chest puffed out and their shoulders back, ready to go, telling the world hey, I'm here and I can do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are
I love that.
I get fired up. Thanks.
Good. I'm glad. So Denver Barbell Club is not your only job. So you're also run a real estate business. So how do you manage running the two businesses, and do you recommend it?
Interview's over. No, I'm just kidding. This year I've had to learn about delegation. So that's something that I'm probably never going to stop learning about. I'm a grinder. I just work hard. You've worked with me in both capacities for a number of years. But you got to hire people that are better than you. So I had an uncle that he was my mom's brother, and it was so crazy. Everybody, he was first a contractor, like a GC in San Diego, and then owned a restaurant. And it's he would hire people and then call them morons and not empower them. And he had to babysit all of them. And I'm just dude, I don't have time for that. So, hiring people, I think Steve Jobs said it, hire people that are smarter than you. So honestly, when I look around at a coach's meeting, or I just brought on a broker to work with me, so we're building a team out. I want to look at these people and say, yeah, they're better than I am at things. That's exactly. So Lindsay, I can't do Lindsay's job better than she can.
Yeah.
The coaches, I mean, they're all great. They're all more intelligent than I am. So when we need to come together as a team and stuff like that, I know that they have my back, and they're not they're offering good ideas. So I think hiring people to do stuff, I wish I would have hired people sooner, to be completely honest with you, because I experienced burnout, some pretty significant burnout. And it's who suffers when the leader's burned out? Everybody below them. And in this case, clients and customer, athletes. The people you don't want to suffer were the ones that suffered. And luckily it didn't last long. But definitely hire people. I would say, do I recommend doing it? I don't think so. It's hard, and it's I started the gym first, and then I got into real estate. So people, who don't know the story, they'll say, oh man, you're brilliant. You started a gym to foster the real estate business. That's not what happened.
Yeah.
I didn't even start a gym. I started something that I wanted to lift with 10 people, and here it's 150 deep, maybe more. I don't even know what it is now. We don't even count. And it's at the same time that, have I gotten some business from the gym? Yeah, of course. These people trust me more than anybody. They know I'm a badass. That's what they do. But that's not why I did it, and so my role has been a lot different, but running two at the same time is super challenging. And if anybody wants a work-life balance, I definitely would not recommend it. This whole idea of hustle and getting on the grind, those are character flaws. And I know, because I have them. So they're not sexy. They're just character flaws. We can't lose. We can't stop. It's not a good thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. Nope. That totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. What's your favorite part about running a gym?
There's this moment, I'm trying not to tear up, man. It's a lot, but there's this moment when I'm on, when you're at a competition of any level, and you have this person, and you've been working with them, training with them, you watch them grind, you watch them do their thing, you feel the emotion that they put into the sport. And then as a coach, you don't go up there. They walk up onto the platform, the big stage, whatever it is, and they have 1 minute to execute their lift. So it's you got 16, 20, sometimes 16, 20 weeks, sometimes longer, sometimes years of planning that have gone into this particular 1 minute period. And then when they execute, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
That's why I quit lifting. Retired, because I don't need it. I get to experience, I experienced it, but I get to experience from a totally different perspective. Right. And that's my absolute favorite part. It's just watching, and it doesn't have to be on a big platform. We have in-house meets. When somebody does something well, that just gets me going. That's awesome. That's my favorite part. It's why I'll never stop.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about
Yeah.
your favorite part about being in real estate?
Oh man, well, I have degrees in finance and accounting and economics, and it's like you study this stuff, you look at these, models, and you look at these equations and stuff like that, and then just seeing it happen in motion is just like so fascinating to me. Like this last spring, I mean, you were there; it was kind of a shit show. Like values went up like astronomically,
Mhm.
and now they're kind of coming back down. But it's not like they're coming down; they're just normalizing. Well, I studied those models in college, like
Right.
things go up and then they have to people call it market correction, but most people don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And it's like knowing what that actually means and knowing what happens to like facilitate that and then see it happen in motion. That's pretty sick. So
Yeah.
that's definitely my favorite part. I would like to say the client service is my favorite part, but honestly, sometimes like people don't know what they want. And so
Right.
I end up arguing with them because like I know what's better than them or I think I know what's better for them.
Mhm.
But yeah, like seeing it happen in person is like the most fascinating thing ever. I think
Yeah.
it's like looking through a telescope at like
Yeah.
different galaxies if you're a physics nerd or something,
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah,
So that's all the questions that I have. You did
that's
wonderful.
not
So
bad.
thank you for answering all of them. Is there anything else that you want to share either about Denver Barbell Club or real estate, or both, that you want people to either know about you or Denver Barbell Club or anything like that that we haven't covered today?
Yeah, I mean Denver Barbell Club, I mean it's a place for regular people. It's why I built it. It's
Mhm.
never going to be anything else. I think every regular person, every normal person like me can just be extraordinary. And I think that what we do is convince people that that's what they can do, um, which is pretty cool. And I think that really plays into real estate. So I'm not going to like plug a sales pitch. I mean, I do pretty well in real estate. So like if people want to hire me, they do, and that's always been my approach. But so I'm not going to
Mhm.
like plug or anything like that. But it's like real estate. I mean, it's like I grew up broke. My parents are immigrants, and now I have 3 houses in one of the fastest growing cities in America. So
Right.
um, I don't know what more you need to hear
Yeah.
about it, and so I mean, me, I don't really convince people to buy or sell. If they want
Yeah.
help doing it, I'm here for
Yeah.
them. But I would
Yeah.
say like, man, real estate is still and always going to be just the way to do it if you
Yeah.
need to come up and like try and level up.
Yeah, absolutely. And then with the Denver Barbell Club, are you guys taking on more members? Do you have capacity for more members if somebody wants to get involved?
Yeah, so we're open for business. I know there was like a 7 month period where we were trapped in our little space,
Mhm.
but now we have 2,500 square feet and 24/7 access.
Awesome.
So we're taking more members. We're ready to welcome them, and we have a pretty dope family and community that's ready for them. So
And where's the new
yeah,
space? You said it's in Rhino, but where in Rhino is it?
yeah, it's sort of it's Clayton technically, but I feel like Rhino's just kind of expanded. So
Yeah.
it's 40th and York. It's called York Street Yards, a pretty sick
Okay.
development, and we're Suite 1302.
Okay.
It's on the Google page. So if you just Google Denver Barbell Club, I mean, honestly, our SEO is rad, just randomly by accident. So if you
Uh-huh.
Google anything to do with strength in Denver, we're going to come up first.
Very
So
cool.
people can just check it out on there, and they can do everything on the website if they want to come visit us, come talk to us,
Okay.
come check out what we do, come experience it, whatever.
Very cool. All right. Awesome.
Yeah,
Joey, I really appreciate your time today. This was super helpful information and hopefully
thanks,
gave
Jack.
some people some insight on weightlifting and just small business ownership and just kind of all of the ups and downs and all of the success stories and stuff there within.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. It's nice to talk about this stuff. I love it. So
Yeah,
stoked to be
absolutely.
here.
Appreciate your time. We'll talk to you soon.
Cool. Thanks, Jack.